People who have pretended to fall asleep. What's the most shocking thing you overheard? Story 1. I remember way back, I couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve. You know, being a little kid and all. So during this sleepless night, where I guess my parents thought I was asleep, I heard my dad say, "Where do you think we should hide the new puppy?" That was pretty much at the top of my list. So naturally, I was excited that I was getting a puppy. They talked for a good 20 minutes about the puppy, saying things like, "How should we keep it from barking before he finds him?" before I dozed off. The next morning, I discovered that my parents knew I was awake and just decided to fuck with me. There was no goddamn puppy. I got a Game Boy though, so it wasn't too bad. Story 2. When I was 6 or 7, I remember staying up late without the babysitter realizing whilst my parents were out. I remember when they came back home, I was so worried about getting into trouble for still being awake that I pretended to be asleep. Mom came in the room asking whether or not I was awake. I stayed quiet, and then she just sat down on my bed. She was quiet for what felt like forever, but was probably only a couple of minutes before she bent over, stroked my hair, and kissed the top of my head whilst telling me how much she loved me and how much I meant to her. And then she tucked the covers around me tighter and left. To this day, it's my favorite memory of her, and one I've never shared with anyone. Story 3. Was spending the night at a friend's house. I'm a guy, she's a girl who brought my friend over because we were out partying. We all slept in the same room. I was laying on the floor near my friend when I heard my friend Andrea call my name. Wanting to sleep, I ignored her, not moving. To which she responded, "Okay, Andy, I think he's asleep. Come here." About 5 minutes later, I hear the bed squeaking and her soft One of them sneezed about 15 minutes into it, to which I responded, "Bless you." They immediately stopped. 10 out of 10 would do it again. Honestly, that situation sounds incredibly awkward, yet hilarious at the same time. It's one of those moments you'll probably never forget. I can't help but imagine the shock on their faces when you said, "Bless you." I'm sure it made for an interesting conversation the next day. Story 4. Was in this messed up relationship with my ex-husband when I was pregnant with my second kid. We had a roommate, female, but we would all have sex with each other because we were young and free-spirited or something. Anyway, I pretended to be asleep one night because I didn't feel like having sex that night and didn't want to turn anybody down or make up an excuse. My ex-husband and the roommate got to talking in the next room. The bedroom door was open so I could hear them pretty clearly. And she asked him why he married me anyway. His response was, "I just didn't know what else to do at that point. Seemed like the next logical step, and I took it. I honestly wish I hadn't done it, and I wish I was single right now, living life. But now I have this family, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get out." Story 5. I was dozing off in my bed with my girlfriend at the time when I heard her confess her love for me. She was pretty hammered, but she went into intricate detail about how she feels respected, enjoys the sex, and sees a serious future with me. The next morning, I got yelled at for not cuddling and that it was a major issue. I don't think she even knew of her confession. Story 6. My mom told a friend via telephone, "I thought my husband was cheating, so now I do it too. I still don't know what to do." By the way, my father has not cheated, and it's proven. My mom is just stupid. They're getting divorced now. Story 7. I was drunk at a party and couldn't fathom the world, so I lay down, closed my eyes in a dark room. I heard 2 of my friends come in. One came over to me and poked me in the ribs, then said, "It's fine, he's asleep." Then proceeded to talk about how both of them were cheating on their boyfriends and who at the party they wanted to fuck. Story 8. Buddy and another friend's girl and I ended up in a room with 2 bunk beds. We were chilling when I realized that I was the third wheel, so I powered down. First, there were tests to see if I was awake. Then she climbed to his top bunk, then kissing, then her telling him he should wash his hand. I got bored and did some fake sleep talking. They laughed and continued, but they called it a night without rounding home. She left, and I figured it was best to not give high fives till the next day. I don't know why I waited until we were at his house. Maybe she rode back with us. Still, it was my first time playing Super Nintendo, and as he handed me the controller that would introduce me to Yoshi, I asked him, You did wash your hands, right? He was so thrilled to get to talk to someone about it. Story 9. A French girl I met in a hostel came into where I was sleeping and just sat there. I had just cut it off with her, so I didn't want to deal with her shit. So I pretended to be asleep for a few minutes. She just mumbled random shit. She was pretty drunk. Finally, what got me up was when, in the cutest French accent, she told me she was going to set me on fire in my sleep. I should have mentioned that, yes, I did sleep with her again after that. Sometimes you gotta do messed up shit so someone doesn't light you up on fire, I guess. Oh, I can just picture you pretending to be asleep, trying to avoid any drama while she mumbles away in her adorable French accent. But then, out of nowhere, she drops the fire threat. I bet that was quite the wake-up call, huh? And to think you still ended up sleeping with her again? Talk about playing with fire, literally. I guess sometimes you have to take the heat to avoid getting burned. Story 10. I was less than 3 feet away as one of my best friends took a 19-year-old's V-card. We traveled from the Bay to LA to attend a rave with some girls we met at EDC a few months prior. After all the partying took place, one buddy took the older sister to his car, and my other buddy started making moves on the younger sister. I was sleeping on the floor and was petrified because I felt like if I moved, it would kill his game. So I sat through the most awkward experience of my life. It was short and sporadic, but they both seemed to enjoy it, I think. So I probably made the right decision pretending to be asleep on the floor as they bunny humped on the bed literally 2.5 feet from me. Story 11. Didn't necessarily overhear anything, but I pretended to fall asleep when I was about 12 because I heard someone coming into the room that my younger sister and I shared and thought it was my mom, who would yell at me for being on my iPod at 2 a.m. Turns out it was a robber with a crowbar. He just peeked into the room and went out when he saw us in there. Really glad I didn't realize until the next morning who it was. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I'd realized some strange man was in my room at 2 a.m. Edit. The only reason I know why he had a crowbar was that my dad told me. The police knew he took one to all the houses he robbed. He and his sister worked together, serial robbing houses around our area. And I don't know how they found out or anything. I was 12. This was 6 years ago. I'm just going off what my dad told me, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't lie to me about that for no reason. Story 12. On my way back from a race in Colorado, my buddy got pulled over for speeding in Iowa. I was on the bench seat, sprawled out, trying to sleep. When we pulled over, I asked what was going on. It turned out that we were just getting pulled over. I promptly said, "You guys deal with that shit. I'm going to sleep," pretending to be asleep, and heard the cop go, "What the f***'s wrong with your buddy? Is he okay?" And gave my friends a ton of shit for having me asleep in the back. Well, the cop didn't even try and wake me, though. Now that I think of it, that's not even the first time. I was a freshman in college, and a couple of friends rented a house in Rhode Island. And us, all being underage idiots, proceeded to have a massive party. Cops raided it. I ran upstairs and jumped into a bed. Cops barge in looking for shit. Shining the flashlight in my face, I still pretend to be asleep. They call over and are like, "Hey, so-and-so, this kid is f***ed up." They laugh, find a little bit of funny leaves on the other bed in the room, and proceed to let me sleep through everything. Story 13. When I was in high school, I was practically a loner. Before high school, I lived in Central Florida and didn't understand friendships and romantic relationships because of constant middle school bullies lying and messing with me and stuff. Anyways, I moved from a big city in Central Florida to a small town in Redwoods, California. I moved when I was in 8th grade, and I just kept to myself, knowing that I'll probably move again because of my dad's job, so I thought there was no point in making friends. I was always keeping to myself and minding my own business, and I had a lot of sad thoughts. I felt that, like in middle school, if someone learned of my sad feelings, then they would make fun of me. So I had to act like I'm not sad. Since I wasn't good at socializing, I realized one of the easiest ways to be in a good mood was to hold my classroom's door open. I knew it was a nice gesture, so I just did it, and I thought being nice meant being in a good mood, so I held the door open every time. So every morning, I would always hold my first period door open. I literally just stood there and held the door open, sometimes sitting, but mostly standing there. You get the occasional thank you also, and I would just nod my head and not say anything. But that's not all. Once on my bus ride, a couple of country kids were telling their country friends to apologize to me for always making fun of me for being Asian. Some goth-looking kids were wondering if I was all right, and that I should smile some more since I had a great smile. I even realized that it was a bunch of football players that one morning when I was pretending to be asleep that defended me. Not long after, I started smiling more, saying hello to everyone I knew in the hallway, which was a lot apparently, and joined a community involving clubs. Heck, I was even nominated for the sophomore class homecoming king. I ended up telling people not to because I wasn't good in front of crowds. I ended up moving, as predicted, by the end of my sophomore year, but when I casually mentioned it in my English class, everyone stopped talking and looked in disbelief. Looking back, it was at that moment that I realized for the first time that I truly mattered to people, and I haven't thought as many sad thoughts since. Was always sad, held the door open every morning to pretend I wasn't, and ended up overhearing people defending me since I was bullied. Life changed. Wow, seems like something out of an anime or a movie. Great story, and it's definitely a fantastic reminder that just a little bit of kindness goes a long way. I'm glad people noticed what you were doing and went out of their way to help you when you needed help. Story 14. When I wanted to take my own life at 13, I pretended to be asleep in my hospital bed. My parents actually believed I was, and I heard my mom say to my dad, "First my brother, now her. What am I doing wrong?" It broke my heart because she is a wonderful mother and always had been. We just have bad genetics when it comes to mental illness in my family. I'll never forget those words, and I'm constantly trying to prove to her the wonderful job she's done. Story 15. During a short road trip with people I kind of liked but didn't consider close friends, I slept and woke up, but I left my eyes closed to listen to music in case I'd be able to fall asleep again. One of the girls in the car said, "She looks like an angel when she sleeps." This was the single most touching thing I have ever heard about myself. I don't consider myself a beautiful woman, pretty, funny, intelligent, but not beautiful. So hearing this made my day. Hell, it made my decade. I didn't say anything. I just reveled in the moment and never forgot that wonderful thing that was said about me. Story 16. This will probably get buried, but here goes. One night during high school, my friend and I got invited to a party. I didn't drive back then, so my friend picked me up. All went well on our way to the party. On the way back, however, he got pulled over. As we were pulling to the side of the road, I told him that I was going to pretend to be sleeping, since I was the passenger. Anyway, I hear the cop get out of his cop car, walk towards our car, and stop at the window, but don't say anything. I can feel the brightness of his flashlight, but I don't hear him or my friend say anything. After what seemed like an eternity, I decided to open my eyes to see what was going on. That's when I see my friend, the guy who is driving, pretending like he is sleeping too. Edit. When I woke up, nothing really exciting happened, which is why I left it out initially. No high-speed chases or shit with the cops, just two dumb kids who were terrified of getting a ticket. So after my initial holy f*** moment, the cop, who was obviously messing with us, apologized for waking us up and asked us to step out of the car. He never said, but I'm sure he suspected us of being under the influence, which we weren't. My friend and I were just being dumb kids. Him more so than me, obviously. We fully cooperated, and since we weren't out past curfew, we were soon on our way. The reason the cops pulled us over? My friend's car had a busted taillight. I asked him what he hoped to accomplish by pretending to be sleep driving, to which he replied that he thought I had a smart idea and he should do what I did. Story 17. When I was about 13 or 14, not that long ago, I overheard my parents talk about my dog, Chowder. I was in the living room, half passed out from exhaustion, while they were in the dining area. Chowder was in the vet for a couple of days because of something called distemper. I just thought that after a few days he'd get better and go home and be the normal dog he would be. I was wrong. I lay motionless on the sofa because I was lazy to get up. I accidentally heard Mom crying. I heard words like, "What will we tell her?" and She can't know this before her exams. She might not do well. By this time, I got really curious, so I tried my best to stay awake while staying in the uncomfortable position that I was in. A few other medical terms passed, and I heard the word euthanize. I knew what that meant, and it took me a few seconds to put the pieces together. I cried the whole night, and they found out in the morning. So there, not really interesting, just heartbreaking. Story 18. My best friend and I were at another friend's house. Another friend had a boyfriend at the time, but they were going through some shit and split up, but we were always like, oh, they'll get back together. We had a pretty cool weekend of drinking, games, watching films, and eating food. We had the house to ourselves, and we would fall asleep wherever. I was put in a room with a spare bed and next to the boyfriend because I'm a guy, and they wanted the guys together. I had been sleeping pretty rough one night, and I awoke to hear soft moaning from the bed next to me. He's just jerking off, I thought, so I just turned over and tried to sleep. Then it started again, moaning, but it wasn't him, it was a female. My distorted hearing due to drifting out of sleep heard it get louder and more raunchy. I was so freaked out. I was fully awake and I just had to pretend to sleep and endure this nightmare. After they finished, he waddled off to the toilet after stepping on my bed naked, and the girl was left there. I looked at her to realize it wasn't his ex, it was my best friend. She thought I was asleep, and I thought he was f***ing his ex. But I still gave her a high five for it. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.